Hollywood Boulevard, a 9-year-old girl sat quietly trying to sell her father's guitar for $100. She had been there for 3 hours, but no one had stopped, until an older man passed by. What no one realized was that this simple moment was being recorded. Over the next 18 minutes, something would unfold that would not only change that young girl's life, but also touch the hearts of more than 15 million people who later watched the video. That day, Ozzy Osbourne happened to be on Hollywood Boulevard, and he was about to remind the world he was much more than just the Prince of Darkness. The temperature was close to 102 deg, and the Walk of Fame stars shimmered under the blazing sun. Hollywood Boulevard was as busy and chaotic as ever. Street performers dressed as superheroes collecting tips from tourists, tattoo shops and souvenir stores lining the sidewalks, and countless dreamers chasing fame, many facing disappointment instead. Across from the Chinese Theater, near Marilyn Monroe's star, sat a young girl named Emma Rose Williams. She wore a pink t-shirt and faded denim shorts that had lost their color from too many washes. Her sneakers, once white, were now dull gray. Beside her, carefully placed on the grass, rested an old Yamaha acoustic guitar. In her hands, she held a cardboard sign that read, "For sale, $100. Emma's story was unlike the usual Hollywood tales. This wasn't about chasing stardom. It was about survival. Her father, David Williams, had died in a construction accident 18 months earlier, when a scaffold collapsed, taking his life and 2 others. The insurance company had denied compensation, citing safety violations, and the construction firm had gone bankrupt soon after. Her mother, Linda Williams, 42, was left with 2 children and no financial support. She began working as a waitress at a local diner, earning about $1,800 a month, barely enough to cover rent, food, and other expenses. Eviction notices had started piling up. The fridge was nearly empty most days, and each night Emma could hear her mother quietly crying at the kitchen table, surrounded by unpaid bills. That morning, without telling her mother, Emma had packed her father's guitar in her school backpack, boarded a bus, and come to Hollywood Boulevard. The instrument had been a gift from her father on her 7th birthday. He had taught her a few simple chords that had once filled their small apartment with warmth and laughter. Together, Emma and her father used to play "You Are My Sunshine." That guitar was the only tangible memory she had left of him. But Emma was just 9 years old, and a child that age would do anything to ease her mother's pain. Selling the guitar for $100 could mean a week's worth of groceries, part of the electric bill, or simply a night where her mother didn't cry. Emma had been sitting there for 3 long hours. Hundreds of people had walked by. Some paused to look, others took photos, a few commented, "Oh, how cute." But no one stopped. No one offered to buy it. Her eyes began to water, though she refused to cry. Her father had always told her to be strong, and strong people didn't cry, right? Still, her heart ached. Not just because she couldn't sell the guitar, but because she had to. Parting with her father's gift felt deeply unfair. It was 2:42 p.m. when Ozzy Osbourne stepped onto Hollywood Boulevard. Sharon wasn't with him that day. Ozzy had left their Beverly Hills home alone, wanting a break from the constant advice and reminders his wife lovingly gave. Sometimes he just needed space to walk, think, and breathe. At 70, Ozzy still carried that youthful spark. Dressed in a black t-shirt, faded blue jeans, and his trademark sunglasses, he looked more like a friendly neighbor than a legendary rock icon. Most people passed by without recognizing him. He had just come out of a coffee shop, sipping an iced coffee while reflecting on his life. He and Sharon had recently talked about aging, grandchildren, and the years gone by. The Black Sabbath days, solo albums, their reality show, all of it. At times, Ozzy felt grateful for how far he'd come. Other times, he thought about everything he had lost to addiction and chaos. But whenever he pictured Sharon's face, he knew it had all been worth it. Then he noticed her, a little girl with a guitar and a cardboard sign. Ozzy stopped. His curiosity was sparked. Street vendors were common in Hollywood, but this was different. The girl wasn't playing a role or seeking attention. She looked determined, almost solemn. As a musician, Ozzy's eyes immediately went to the instrument. A Yamaha, old but cared for. The strings were new. He could tell right away this guitar had meant something to someone. Ozzy approached. When Emma looked up, she saw an older man with unusual hair, dark sunglasses, and a gentle expression. She quickly stood up, hopeful that someone was finally interested. Ozzy spoke in his familiar Birmingham accent. "All right there, love. What's all this, then? You selling this guitar?" Emma nodded eagerly. "Yes, sir. It's a really good guitar. My dad taught me how to play on it. It's only $100. Ozzy crouched down and examined the guitar closely. He ran his fingers across the strings, then looked back at Emma. There was something in her expression, not desperation, but determination, that made him pause. "Why are you selling it, sweetheart? This is a nice guitar. Looks like someone really cared for it." Emma's eyes welled up for a second, but she quickly regained her composure. Her voice was steady, though soft. "My mom needs help with bills. My dad, he passed away last year. Mom works really hard, but it's still not enough. I thought if I sold my guitar, it might help." Ozzy's world seemed to stop in that moment. Behind his sunglasses, his eyes stayed fixed on the girl's face. In her, he suddenly saw himself as a boy, young Ozzy from Birmingham. A poor family, a father working long hours in a steel factory, a mother cleaning houses to make ends meet. And little John Osbourne, who had left school at 15 to work in a slaughterhouse just to support them. Emma's story felt like his own. Ozzy swallowed hard, his voice slightly unsteady, though he tried to mask it. "Your dad taught you to play, did he?" he asked. Emma nodded. "Yes, he loved music. He always said, 'Music makes everything better, even the sad parts.'" Ozzy crouched beside her, lowering his sunglasses so she could see his eyes. They were tired but kind, a deep blue that carried warmth. For the first time, Emma sensed this man wasn't just another passerby, though she had no idea who he really was. "Listen, darling," Ozzy said softly. "Your dad was right. Music does make everything better. And you know what else? Dads who teach their daughters to play guitar, they're the best kind of dads." Emma smiled faintly for the first time that day, a small, shy grin. "Did your dad teach you music?" she asked. Ozzy chuckled, that familiar, raspy laugh. "Nah, love. My old man couldn't carry a tune if you put it in a bucket. But he worked himself half to death to feed 6 of us kids, so I taught myself." Emma giggled. This man was kind and funny. Most adults spoke to her like she was a baby, but he talked to her like she mattered. Ozzy stood up and reached for his wallet, a worn old leather one. He pulled out not one but 5 $100 bills, $500 in total. Emma's eyes widened. "Sir, it's only $100. I can't take $500. Ozzy placed the money gently into her hands. He glanced at the guitar but didn't touch it. "That money isn't for the guitar, sweetheart. It's for you and your mum. For food, rent, whatever helps." Emma looked confused. "But and then you don't want the guitar?" Ozzy crouched down again, resting his hands lightly on her shoulders. His voice was calm, almost fragile. "I want you to keep that guitar, love. Because that guitar, it's not just wood and strings. It's your dad. It holds every lesson he gave you, every song you'll ever play. And one day, when you're older, you'll play that same guitar and remember this moment. You'll remember how much your father loved you. So much that he shared music with you. And music, sweetheart, never fades. People pass on, but music lives forever." Emma tried hard not to cry. This stranger, this kind old man, had just spoken the most meaningful words anyone had said to her since her father's passing. Holding $500 in her hand, she couldn't hold back anymore. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Seeing her cry broke Ozzy's heart, but it also filled him with pride. These weren't tears of sadness alone, they were tears of strength and resilience. He took out a handkerchief from his pocket and handed it to her. "Here you go, love. Have a good cry. You've earned it. You're tougher than most grown men I know." Emma wiped her face, thanking him between soft sobs. Then through trembling words she asked, "Why are you being so nice to me?" His voice was calm, almost fragile. "I want you to keep that guitar, love. Because that guitar, it's not just wood and strings. It's your dad. It holds every lesson he gave you, every song you'll ever play. And one day, when you're older, you'll play that same guitar and remember this moment. You'll remember how much your father loved you. So much that he shared music with you. And music, sweetheart, never fades. People pass on, but music lives forever." Emma tried hard not to cry. This stranger, this kind old man, had just spoken the most meaningful words anyone had said to her since her father's passing. Holding $500 in her hand, she couldn't hold back anymore. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Seeing her cry broke Ozzy's heart, but it also filled him with pride. These weren't tears of sadness alone, they were tears of strength and resilience. He took out a handkerchief from his pocket and handed it to her. "Here you go, love. Have a good cry. You've earned it. You're tougher than most grown men I know." Emma wiped her face, thanking him between soft sobs. Then through trembling words she asked, "Why are you being so nice to me?" "You don't even know me," Emma said softly. Ozzy took a deep breath and slipped his sunglasses back on as if to hide what he was feeling. But his voice still carried the weight of emotion. "Because a long time ago I was you, sweetheart. Different place, different time, but the same story. A poor kid trying to help his mom, and no one helped us. We had to do it all ourselves. It was bloody hard. So now, when I see a kid like you doing what you're doing, I help. Because that's what people should do. We're meant to help each other." Just then, a group of tourists walked by. Someone suddenly shouted, "Oh my God, that's Ozzy Osbourne!" Within seconds, phones were out, flashes lit the air, and people began rushing toward him. Emma looked around, startled and confused. She had no idea why everyone was so excited or who this man really was. Ozzy stood up, turned toward the growing crowd, and raised his hands. All right, calm down, you lot. I'm just having a chat with my friend here." But the crowd only grew larger. Some people wanted photos, others asked for autographs. Ozzy smiled politely at everyone but turned back to Emma. "Listen, love," he said gently. "I've got to go before this turns into chaos. But you keep that guitar, yeah? And practice every single day because your dad's watching and he wants to hear you play." Emma was still stunned. "Wait, are you famous?" Ozzy chuckled. "A bit, yeah. Used to bite bats' heads off and all that nonsense, but don't believe everything you hear. Most of it's rubbish." Then his tone shifted. "But this isn't about me being famous. It's about you being brave. And you, sweetheart, are the bravest little girl I've met in a long time." As security guards began moving in to manage the crowd, Ozzy gave Emma's head a gentle pat, smiled one last time, and disappeared among the people. Emma stood there, holding $500 and her guitar, feeling something she couldn't quite explain. She didn't know what it meant yet, but she sensed something important had happened, something that would change her life. That evening, when she returned home, her mother Linda was at the kitchen table surrounded by bills. Emma placed the $500 on the table. Linda froze. "Emma Rose Williams, where did this money come from?" Emma explained everything. Hollywood Boulevard, the guitar, the kind old man, and how people suddenly recognized him. At first, Linda was upset that Emma had gone without permission, but then tears filled her eyes. Her 9-year-old daughter had tried to help their family, and a stranger, a rock star, had given them $500 simply out of kindness. Linda hugged Emma tightly. "Your dad would be so proud of you, baby. So proud." That night, Emma picked up her guitar. She hadn't played it in months. Her fingers ached, but she kept playing, softly strumming "You Are My Sunshine." As she played, she imagined hearing her father's voice and remembered the old man's words, "Music never dies." 3 days later, Emma's story went viral. Someone had captured that heartfelt moment, and the video quickly hit over 15 million views. Thousands of people left comments expressing how deeply moved they were. Support began pouring in. A GoFundMe page was launched, raising $5,000 on the first day, $15,000 on the second, and eventually reaching $30,000. Thanks to that generosity, Linda Williams and her daughter Emma no longer faced eviction. The bills were paid. And it had all started with a legendary rock musician taking a few moments to care for a child. But that wasn't the end of the story. 2 weeks later, Linda received a phone call from Ozzy Osbourne's office. Sharon Osbourne's warm, friendly voice came through. "Linda, I just heard about everything. Ozzy didn't tell me for days, he's far too modest, but we'd love for you and Emma to visit us. We're hosting a small get-together, and Ozzy would really like to see Emma again." Linda joyfully accepted. One Saturday afternoon, she and Emma arrived at the beautiful Osbourne home in Beverly Hills. Ozzy and Sharon greeted them at the door. Sharon embraced Linda like an old friend, and Ozzy's eyes brightened the moment he saw Emma. "There's my little rock star. Did you bring your guitar?" he asked. Emma nodded shyly. Ozzy led her out back, where a small stage was set up with musical equipment. He showed her something special, the iconic Tony Iommi riff from Iron Man. Emma's small fingers struggled at first, but Ozzy was patient and encouraging. "That's it, love. Nice and slow, you're doing great." After an hour, Emma could play the riff. It wasn't flawless, but it was real progress. Yet the greatest gift Ozzy gave her wasn't the $500 or even the lesson. It was what came afterward. 3 months later, Linda got another unexpected call, this time from Ozzy's lawyer. At first she panicked, thinking something might be wrong. But then came the news that changed everything. Ozzy and Sharon had quietly set up a $50,000 education fund in Emma's name. The money was meant solely for her education, music lessons, and future growth. They hadn't told the media, made a post, or sought any attention. They simply did it out of genuine kindness. When Linda hung up, she cried for hours. Emma, worried, asked why. Linda pulled her close and whispered, "That kind man who helped you, he just gave you a future, sweetheart. He gave you a chance to become anything you want." That fall, Emma began private guitar lessons for the first time, with a real teacher and proper training. With each session, she improved, and music soon became the center of her world. She played after school, before bed when she was sad, happy, or uncertain. 6 months later, her school announced a talent show. Emma hesitated, feeling shy, but Linda encouraged her. "Your dad would want you to play, honey." And so would Ozzy. That name had become a symbol of belief and hope for Emma, the man who saw her potential. When she walked on stage holding her father's guitar, the auditorium was filled with students and parents. Under the bright lights, she took a deep breath and began to play "You Are My Sunshine." Her voice trembled at first, then grew steady and strong. The audience fell silent. This wasn't just a song, it was a story. A story about a child, a father, a stranger, and the power of hope. When she finished, the crowd rose to their feet, clapping for minutes. That night, back home, Linda had a surprise. She showed Emma a video on her phone. Ozzy had seen her performance. Someone had recorded and shared it online, and Ozzy himself had commented, "This little rock star is going to change the world one day. I knew it the moment I met her. Keep playing, Emma, your dad's watching." And he's proud. If this story touched your heart or reminded you how one act of kindness can change a life, hit that like button and subscribe to Prince of Darkness Stories. Share this with someone who needs to remember that good people still exist. Because sometimes, the so-called Prince of Darkness shines the brightest light. And sometimes, a $100 guitar is worth more than all the money in the world.